Have you ever tried to push down a negative emotion only to have it come back even stronger? Emotions are like a beach ball pressed underwater. The more you force them down, the harder they bounce back up. Anger, sadness, anxiety. They're uncomfortable. Yes, but have you ever truly paused to listen to what they're trying to say? Imagine this. What if, instead of trying to shut these feelings out, you simply named them when they came? This is anger. This is sadness. What would change? Your breath becomes a friend. The mind begins to settle. And suddenly, you're not a victim of your emotions, you become a mindful observer. And if there was a way to turn negative emotions into a path of healing, would you be open to trying it? It doesn't take much. Write down what you're feeling. Take a slow walk in nature. Sit with someone who listens without judgment. Or simply breathe. Sometimes that's all it takes to begin the journey back home to yourself. 1. Negative emotions are natural. Here's the truth. Emotions aren't the enemy. They're a natural part of being human. No matter where you live, what you do, whether you have faith or none, at everyone has moments when the heart feels heavy, the head gets hot, or a silent sadness squeezes the chest. Many people, especially as they get older, blame themselves for feeling this way. I should be stronger than this. At my age, why am I still this sensitive? But that's a deep misunderstanding. Emotions don't care about age. They come like the rain nut because you're young or old. And the more you suppress them, the stronger they come back like a ball you try to hold underwater. It pushes back harder. Have you ever felt that? There's a Buddhist story about a student who, every time he felt angry, locked himself in his room and chanted as loud as he could, hoping to push the anger away. But no matter how much he chanted, the anger stayed. So he finally went to his teacher. The teacher smiled gently and said, "If you're only trying to get rid of the anger without truly facing it, you'll spend your whole life chasing your own shadow." Negative emotions aren't here to be rejected, they're here to be seen and understood. It's like sitting by a river, watching leaves float by. Each leaf is a feeling, maybe frustration from being misunderstood, maybe loneliness in the middle of the night. If you try to block the river, the water builds up and bursts. But if you just sit and observe, each leaf eventually drifts away. When we look at life this way, our hearts begin to feel lighter. The Buddha taught, "The mind that clings to nothing is the mind that is truly free." That means when a feeling arises, rather than clinging to it or fighting it, we just see it. We breathe with it. No need to analyze it. No need to make it disappear. Just imagine, when sadness visits, you simply sit down, place a hand on your chest and whisper, "This is sadness. Sadness is here." Isn't that so much softer than pretending everything's fine? That is acceptance, and acceptance is a deep act of compassion towards yourself. In daily life, we're often taught to control emotions. But in Buddhism, it's not about control, it's about understanding, because only through understanding can we transform. When we realize that anger is often just a cry from a wounded place inside, we no longer try to push it away. And as we age, emotions become more subtle, more quiet. They don't always have words, but they still weigh on the heart. So, to gently name and hold our emotions, that is a priceless gift we give to the soul. And no one else can do it for us. The truth of suffering isn't here to make us feel hopeless. It's here to remind us, where there is suffering, there is also a path out. And the first step is always acceptance. No resistance. No judgment. Because only when we can accept the darkness inside can we begin to light the way. 2. Buddhism teaches that suffering comes from resisting reality. You know, sometimes sadness just shows up quietly, without a clear reason. Life could be going on as usual, And then suddenly, your heart sinks. Maybe it's a passing comment from someone, a memory from the past, or just a lonely, quiet afternoon. And right away, the mind kicks into its old habit. Don't be sad. Don't be angry. Don't be weak. We tell ourselves these things over and over. But in the light of Buddhist wisdom, there's a simple and powerful truth. Suffering is a natural part of being human. No one goes through life without touching suffering. That's the very first truth the Buddha realized, known as the First Noble Truth Dukkha. But here's the real question. Why does suffering hurt so much? It's not just the pain itself. It's how we resist it. It's that voice inside that says, "Why is this happening to me? This shouldn't have happened. I can't accept this." That resistance, that refusal to accept what is what deepens our suffering. Have you ever noticed this? Something painful happened years ago, but even now, when you remember it, the ache comes back like a wound that never really healed. It's not because the event is still here, but because deep inside, you still wish it had gone differently. The Buddha made it clear in the Four Noble Truths. Suffering is an unavoidable part of life, but the cause of suffering is clinging and resistance to reality. And when we sit with that teaching, we begin to see so much of our pain doesn't come from the world, but from our own refusal to let go. There was a man who once came to a temple carrying a heavy bitterness. He'd been abandoned as a child and had lived with that anger for decades, blaming his parents, blaming life. During a Dharma talk, he heard the phrase, "Attachment is the root of suffering." He sat in silence for a long time. Then he cried, not because anyone told him to forget, but because, for the first time, he saw clearly that it wasn't the past itself that had imprisoned him. It was his inability to accept the past. And he said, "Maybe I never really gave myself permission to suffer." You see, resisting suffering only creates more suffering. Acceptance doesn't mean giving up. It means stopping the fight against what has already happened. Like rain, you can't stop it from falling, but you can choose how you respond. Step under shelter. Listen to the raindrops, instead of cursing the sky. And when the heart is calm, you'll know when to walk in the rain and when to stay still. A Zen master once said, "Suffering is like a crying child. It doesn't need to be pushed away. It needs to be held." So next time sadness or anger comes, what if you just sat down quietly and looked at that feeling as if it were a small child? No scolding, no turning away. Then something beautiful happens. The pain begins to soften. As we grow older, we start to understand. We don't need to control life. What we need is to tame the mind. And the first step? Let go of the fight against the present moment. No one has ever taught this more clearly or more compassionately than the Buddha. He didn't deny suffering. He helped us look deep into it, and from there, find our way to freedom. 3. Emotions are like the weather. Have you ever looked out the window on a gray, rainy morning and felt your heart turn a little gray too? Then, sometime later in the day, the clouds part, the sun peeks through, and everything looks different. No one told the sky to change. No one could stop the clouds from drifting. Things just come and go in their own time. Our emotions are the same like the weather. There are days when you can't quite explain it, but your heart feels heavy. A nameless sadness, a quiet worry, a memory from long ago that sneaks back in like an old wound reopening. And then you start getting frustrated with yourself. Why do I feel like this? Why can't I just be happy? Am I being too weak? Have you ever blamed yourself like that? But the truth is, what really hurts us isn't just the emotion itself. It's the way we judge that emotion. It's like standing in the rain and yelling, "Stop raining." You just end up wetter, colder, and more exhausted. But if you understand that rain is just part of the weather, and that it too will pass, you begin to feel a little more at peace. The Buddha taught, all things are impermanent. And that doesn't just apply to our bodies or the world around us. It also applies to our thoughts and emotions. Anger comes and goes. Worry comes and goes. Sadness comes and goes. Like clouds in the sky, like waves on the surface of water. The problem is we forget. We think the anger will last forever, so we try to push it away. We fear that sadness will swallow us, so we fake a smile and pretend it's fine. But emotions don't need us to fight them. They just want to be seen. And once we see them clearly, they begin to soften on their own. A Zen master once said, "When an emotion arises, greet it like a guest knocking at your door. Open the door, invite it in, make it a cup of tea, sit with it, watch it, and when it leaves, bow to it with gratitude." Just imagine this for a moment. One evening, your heart is full of worry about something that hasn't even happened yet. But instead of chasing the thoughts around, you sit down, you close your eyes, you follow your breath, and you gently say to yourself, "Oh, this is worry." No judgment, no escape, just sitting with it. Can you imagine how much more peaceful that might feel? In fact, many older Buddhist practitioners have shared that over time, they've learned to sit with their emotions instead of reacting to them. One woman said, "Before, whenever I felt sad, I'd call someone, distract myself with work, anything to avoid it. But now, I just sit quietly, breathe deeply, and let the sadness pass like a cloud." And somehow, it hurts less that way. It's not easy, but it's simple. This isn't about high philosophy. It's a way of living mindfully, with the understanding that everything changes. Emotions are like visitors. None of them are here to stay forever. None of them come without reason. All we have to do is open the door, let them in, let them go, without clinging, without pushing away. Because the moment we stop trying to change the weather inside us, that's when the sun starts to shine again. 4. Accepting your emotions is an act of compassion toward yourself. There's something many people, especially in their middle or later years, find surprisingly difficult: allowing themselves to feel. When a negative emotion shows up, maybe sadness, anger, loneliness, or a deep sense of hurt, our first instinct is often to push it away. Because we've been taught things like, strong people don't feel sad, grown-ups should control their emotions, or even, I'm too old to still feel this way. Have you ever thought like that? But in the light of Buddhist teachings, there's a gentle truth. Accepting your emotions isn't weakness. It's an act of self-compassion. It doesn't mean you're encouraging negativity or letting emotions take over your life. It simply means you give your emotions permission to exist, without judgment, without avoidance, without rushing to shut them down. Imagine this. A small child comes to your door crying. You open the door, kneel down and say, "Oh, sweetheart, you're sad? Come in, sit with me. Tell me what's wrong." What happens? The child starts to calm down. But if you snap, "Stop crying, go away," the child cries harder, feels more alone, more afraid. Emotions are just like that. When pushed away, they don't disappear. They hide in the dark and grow stronger But when gently acknowledged, given space to just be, they begin to dissolve, like morning mist in the sun. A Zen teacher once said, "Your mind is a home. Each emotion is a visitor. You don't have to entertain every guest, but your heart should be open enough to know who's at the door." I once heard an older practitioner say something so honest. "I got angry at someone I love, and then I felt ashamed for being angry. And then I got angry at myself." You see how it snowballs? One emotion left unacknowledged can pile on guilt, self-blame, and exhaustion. And that's how suffering grows. The Buddha never told us to reject our emotions. On the contrary, he taught us to look directly at them, to embrace them, to understand them. In the Anapanasati Sutta, the sutra on mindful breathing, the Buddha said, "Breathing in, I know I am angry. Breathing out, I smile to my anger." Just one simple action, acknowledging the feeling, not trying to fix it, not judging it, just being with it. And that alone starts the healing. Now think about this. Throughout your life, you've shown compassion to so many. To your children, your friends, your coworkers, even to people who hurt you. But how many times have you allowed yourself to be tired, to be sad, to be wrong without beating yourself up? Accepting your emotions is a gift you give to yourself. It's a way of saying, "I see you, sadness. I see you, anger. You don't have to leave right away. I'll sit with you a while." This isn't about indulgence. It's about understanding that emotions show up for a reason. A sadness might be telling you, your heart needs rest. An anger might be saying, something no longer feels right. When we stop pushing emotions away, we start hearing the message behind them. There was an elderly woman who came to a retreat at the temple. She shared that she always felt guilty for holding on to an old wound from her youth. Every time that memory resurfaced, she would chant louder, faster, trying to drive it away. But the pain kept returning like a long shadow at dusk. Only when she sat still and said, "Wound, I know you're still there," did the heaviness begin to lift. The miracle wasn't that the emotion disappeared. It was that once accepted it, no longer controlled her. And when the heart is no longer ruled by sadness, anger, or fear, it finally has space to understand, to love, to forgive. Acceptance is the first step toward understanding, toward letting go, toward peace. 5. Mindfulness, a gentle way to be with your emotions. There's something so simple, yet so powerful, that it can completely change the way we live with our emotions. It's this: naming our feelings mindfully. Sounds easy, right? But the truth is, many older folks I've spoken to have said they spent their whole lives never really knowing what they were feeling. When they were angry, they'd either explode or go completely silent. When they were sad, they kept themselves busy. When they were anxious, they tried to control everything around them. But rarely did they pause and gently say to themselves, "This is anger. This is sadness. This is worry." Have you ever felt like that? Like you were swept away by a wave of emotions, without even knowing what was really going on inside? In Buddhism, we call that ignorance. Not the lack of intelligence, but the lack of clarity in the present moment. And the way out of that spiral begins with something very basic: mindfulness, which simply means pause, see clearly, no judgment, no escape. A Zen teacher once said, "Mindfulness is like a flashlight in the dark. It doesn't change what's there, but it lets us see things as they really are." Now imagine this. It's the end of a long, tiring day. You're irritated. No one's done anything wrong. But even the smallest noise gets under your skin. And instead of snapping at someone or blaming yourself, you pause, take a deep breath, and softly say in your heart, "This is anger." That's it. You don't try to fix it. You don't try to justify it. You simply see it. And in that moment, anger is no longer in charge. You're present. You are the one who sees, not the one being dragged around. I've shared this with many older meditators in retreats, and one man in his 60s once said something I'll never forget. All my life I thought anger was just anger. But when I learned to name it with mindfulness, I realized anger is just a cloud, and I am not the cloud. I'm the sky. That one simple sentence, so humble, so powerful, holds a deep awakening. Emotions are visitors. You are the one who observes. Anger is not who you are. Sadness is not who you are. They come, they go. But if we don't see clearly, we start to believe that's all we are. With mindfulness, something shifts. The emotions may still be there, but they no longer control you. You stop reacting. You begin responding with clarity. Instead of letting worry drive your actions, you breathe with it and choose your path with awareness. The Buddha said, "Just as a good gatekeeper knows who enters and who leaves, the mindful person knows what emotion is arising." Not everyone learns this early. But the beautiful thing is, you can start anytime, whether you're 50, 60, or well beyond that. Every moment you show up for yourself is a step deeper into awakening. You can begin today. You don't need to sit in meditation for an hour or chant long sutras. You only need this. When a feeling rises, gently name it. This is sadness. This is loneliness. This is worry about the future. Name it not to earn a badge. Name Ito, bring light. Because when you know where you are, you're no longer lost. Emotions, when left unseen, grow quietly in the dark. But the moment mindfulness touches them, they soften like morning mist touched by sunlight. No forcing, no pretending, just presence. 6. Journaling. A gentle practice of coming home to yourself. Have you ever sat quietly in the evening, your heart feeling unsettled, and you reached for a pen and just started writing? Not to show anyone, not to make it pretty, just to write for yourself, to make sense of what's going on inside. Now, journaling might sound like a modern wellness habit for young people, but truly, it's a deep practice, one that the Buddha himself encouraged in the spirit of self-inquiry and inner clarity. We call it by a very simple name, journaling. But behind that ordinary word is a quiet path, one that leads us back to understanding and peace. Have you ever had those days where your mind just feels tangled? You're not even sure why you're sad. You don't know who you're angry with. And everything on the outside seems fine. But inside, something's just not right. Some people stay silent. Some talk it out. But there's another way. Write it out, not to explain, but to see clearly. Imagine this. Every sentence you write is like shining a small flashlight into a cluttered room inside your heart. Each word is a slow, steady step through corners of your mind you've forgotten or maybe avoided for years. I remember a woman in her 60s once said to me, "I used to think journaling was a luxury, but now, whenever I feel overwhelmed, I take out a piece of paper and simply write what's true. I feel tired. I feel sad. I'm upset with someone I love. And just that calms me down. Such a simple story, but in it, a quiet transformation. Because when we write our emotions down, they no longer sit heavy in silence. We bring them into the light. We look at them with understanding instead of letting them control us from the shadows. In Buddhism, this isn't new. Meditation isn't just what happens on a cushion. It's our ability to observe the mind anytime, anywhere, using any tool. And journaling is one of the most gentle tools to practice mindfulness of the heart. The Buddha once said, "Just as a farmer knows when the soil is dry or fertile, a mindful person knows the state of their own mind, what is growing and what is fading." But how can we know if we never pause to look? Writing is that pause. It's the moment the heart unfolds. No rushing, no judging, just noticing, honestly. For many people in their 50s, 60s, and beyond, life carries many layers of memories, of pain, of unspoken stories. And if we don't have a space to slow down and reflect, those emotions can quietly settle into habits, thought patterns, and silent suffering. But writing with mindfulness lets us catch those moments. You might suddenly realize, oh, I always get upset when I feel ignored. Or, the sadness I've carried for decades, maybe it began when I felt unheard as a child. You don't need to be a writer. You don't need fancy words or long pages. You only need to be honest with yourself. Write like you're sitting with a trusted friend, someone who doesn't interrupt, doesn't judge, just listens to you, heart wide open. And over time, you'll start to see patterns, old wounds that keep returning, small joys you've overlooked. And from there, understanding begins to grow. Sometimes, just writing something as simple as, "Today, I felt lonely," is enough to see yourself in a way you've never seen before. And in naming that loneliness, you may not feel quite so alone anymore. 7. Taking care of yourself is not selfish. There's something that seems simple, yet many people struggle with it deeply: taking care of themselves. Not because they don't know how, but because somewhere deep down, many of us carry this hidden belief: if I care for myself, I'm being selfish. Have you ever felt that way? Maybe you've spent your whole life caring for others. Your children, your partner, your job, your community. And every time you even think about resting a bit, taking a slow walk in the late afternoon sun, sitting quietly with an old song, or simply saying no to someone's request, you feel a little guilty. Like if you're not busy or being useful, you don't deserve to pause. But what if you just stopped? For a moment, imagine this: a candle that keeps burning to light the way for others, but never gets shielded from the wind. One day, the flame dims, not because it lacked brightness, but because it was never protected. Our hearts are just like that. You can be full of love, full of care for the world, but if you don't take time to nourish that heart, eventually it runs dry. In Buddhism, this is called the practice of turning inward, not to escape the world, but to show up more fully for it, from a place that's whole, from a place that's rested. Let me ask you, when was the last time you stepped outside just to breathe fresh air, nothing more? When was the last time you let a piece of music move you to tears and simply sat with that feeling? When was the last time you smiled at yourself? Not because you achieved something, but just because you're still here? A Zen teacher once said, If you want the water in the lake to stay clear, don't stir it. If you want the mind to stay clear, learn when to pause and care for it. It doesn't have to be anything big. Maybe just a quiet afternoon walk in the Parno rush. No goal. Each step becomes a reminder. I am alive. I am present. Or maybe a few minutes of gentle meditation in the morning. Not to get anywhere, just to sit and listen to the quiet rhythm of your inner life. I remember a retired Buddhist friend once told me during a tea meditation, I used to think things like listening to music, taking walks, or tending to my garden were luxuries. But now I realize, those are the moments I truly come home to myself. Those small things calm my heart more than any sermon ever could. And when I heard that, I smiled, because she had discovered a truth that Buddhism has always taught. Caring for yourself is part of the path. A person who tends to their body, their breath, their heart, is someone who's protecting their mindfulness and planting seeds of compassion and wisdom in everyday life. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha said, one who does not care for their body and mind is like a house with a leaky roof. The wind and rain will easily seep in. So you see, taking care of yourself isn't selfish. It's wise, because a tired heart can't offer joy. An empty cup can't pour love. And you, no matter your age, deserve to rest, deserve to breathe, deserve to renew. You don't need anyone's permission. And you don't have to wait until you're completely worn out. Taking care of yourself is a deep act of love, and you can start right now. 8. Loving kindness meditation, metta bhavana. There are days when the heart just closes up. Not because something big has happened, but simply because the heart feels a little colder. A careless word stings. A loved one lets us down. Or maybe it's that old familiar loneliness. Returning like an uninvited guest. Have you ever felt that way? In moments like that, people often shut down. They avoid conversations. They pull away. Some stay quiet. Some get angry. Some blame themselves. But right in the middle of all those emotions, there's a practice the Buddha left us, like a gentle gift to humanity. It's not complicated. It doesn't require years of deep meditation. Yet it has the power to heal in the most profound way. It's called loving kindness meditation, or in Pali, metta bhavana. Metta means unconditional, boundless, non-judging love. And bhavana means cultivation or development. So together, it means cultivating love from the inside out. Picture this. Someone is angry. Their shoulders are tense. Their face is hot. Their chest tight. But instead of yelling, instead of bottling it up or blaming someone else, they sit down, close their eyes, and quietly whisper in their heart, "May I be peaceful. May I be healthy. May I live with ease and without fear." That's it. They're not trying to get rid of the anger. They're not trying to fix anything. They're simply offering kindness to themselves, like a dear friend would. Have you ever done that for yourself? So many people spend their whole lives taking care of others. Children, partners, parents, friends, and forget that the very first person who needs loving kindness is themselves. Not out of selfishness, but out of compassion. The Buddha said, you can search the whole universe and not find anyone more deserving of your love than yourself. And when you learn to love yourself the right way, you will love others more fully. But metta doesn't stop with yourself. After sending kind wishes to yourself, you gently expand to someone you love, then to a friend, then to a stranger, and maybe even to someone who hurt you. That part, it's not easy. Forgiveness is a journey. But loving kindness meditation isn't asking you to forgive right away. It's just inviting you not to shut your heart. Just this thought: that person is human too. They have pain. They want happiness, just like me. And from there, what was hard begins to soften. Isolation becomes connection. I remember an older student once shared a story with me. For over 30 years, she hadn't spoken to her younger sister after a terrible fight. But after starting metta meditation, she began each morning to silently send her sister kind wishes. No one knew. Then one afternoon, she picked up the phone and said just 5 words. "I've been thinking of you." There was silence, then tears on both ends. No explanations. No need to be right or wrong, but something long broken was whole again because she softened the hardest thing from the inside out. In the Karanaya Metta Sutta, the Buddha described loving kindness like this: "Let one spread love to all beings, in every direction, like a mother's love for her only child." And you know what? Anyone can start. Whether you're 40, 60, or 80 years old. All it takes is a few quiet minutes each day. Sit still, close your eyes, and whisper gently in your heart, "May and all beings be safe and at peace." Like planting a small seed in the soil of your heart. And if you keep watering it, that seed will grow into a tree that gives shade not only to you, but to everyone around you. 9. Negative emotions are an opportunity to grow. There are certain emotions that, when they show up, we just want to avoid them, push them away, or even pretend they're not there. Anger, disappointment, jealousy, sadness. We often slap a label on them, negative. And then we tell ourselves, a spiritual person shouldn't feel this way. A mature person should be beyond this. Someone wise wouldn't get upset like that. Have you ever thought like that? But the truth is, negative emotions aren't the enemy. If we approach them with awareness, they can become our greatest teachers. Tough teachers, yes. Uncomfortable ones. But honest. They don't show up to punish us. They come to invite us to grow from the inside out. There's a powerful image in Buddhism, the lotus that rises from the mud. No mud, no lotus. No suffering, no awakening. That's the truth the Buddha saw and passed on to us. Imagine this. There was a time when pain kept you up at night. Maybe it was betrayal, a loss that couldn't be repaired, an injustice that felt too much to bear. In that moment, emotions crashed in like a tidal wave. All you wanted was for it to disappear. But if you've ever made it through something like that and looked back years later, you might have realized that experience taught me who I really am, what I need, and what truly matters. I'm reminded of a story from the Buddhist texts. A young disciple used to hide his anger. He sat in meditation, looking calm on the outside, but inside, he was boiling. One day, the Buddha asked him, "If you saw a sharp rock blocking a stream, what would you do?" The disciple replied, "I'd move it so the water could flow freely." The Buddha nodded and said, "But if you never see the rock, the water stays blocked." It's the same with your emotions. If you don't clearly see and face them, they'll always be there quietly damming the flow of your mind. Simple story, but such deep wisdom. Negative emotions, when seen clearly, become the material for transformation. They help us recognize our limits. They reveal what hasn't healed. They show us the habits we've yet to outgrow. One older Buddhist practitioner once shared this. She used to get very angry at her son for not listening. Every argument, she was sure he was wrong. But after attending a meditation retreat, she sat down to write about her feelings, and something unexpected came up. Beneath the anger was fear. Fear of losing him. Fear he'd take the wrong path. Fear she wouldn't be needed anymore. And she said something that moved me deeply. I thought I was angry at him, but really, I was just so worried, and I didn't know how to show it. That anger left unchecked would have stayed a thorn. But once seen with wisdom, it became a lesson in love. You see, the Buddha never asked us to become people without emotions. He simply taught us how to live with them, without being ruled by them. And each time we understand a deeper part of ourselves, we take another step on the path of awakening. Have you ever had that moment? When you were hurting, but instead of running away, you sat down, looked inward, and saw something you'd never seen before? If so, you'll understand. Spiritual growth doesn't come from avoiding pain, but from holding it gently, with compassion and clarity. When negative emotions are touched by mindfulness, they stop being negative. They become mirrors, honest reflections of what's happening in the heart. And the moment we stop trying to throw our feelings away, and instead learn to live with them, that's when we begin to truly be free. 10. Every negative emotion carries a message. Have you ever wondered why certain emotions just keep coming back? Even after you've tried to forget them, even after you've tried your best to move on? Maybe you've been deeply angry with someone. Maybe you feel afraid in familiar situations. Maybe you felt sad for a long time, and you just can't figure out why. These emotions, anger, fear, sadness, they come like uninvited guests, knocking again and again at the door of your heart. Have you ever felt that? But what if, instead of pushing them away, we paused and gently opened the door with mindfulness? In the Buddhist teachings, no emotion is wrong. No emotion is shameful. He didn't divide them into good or bad, positive or negative. He taught that every emotion has a reason for being there. And if we're willing to listen, each one carries a message, a kind of inner whisper asking us to pay attention. I remember during a tea meditation, a woman in her 60s shared, "I often get angry at my son, and then I feel ashamed, like I'm not a good mother." But during one meditation, I suddenly saw that anger was actually coming from fear of losing him, fear I couldn't protect him from things I didn't understand. When she said that, the whole room fell silent, because we've all had those moments where we thought we were angry at something outside, but really, it was pain inside trying to speak. Anger, if you look closely, often signals that a boundary has been crossed. Maybe someone said something that made you feel unseen, disrespected, or unsafe. And instead of saying, "I feel hurt," we explode with anger. But if you pause and look inward, you might notice, "I'm angry because I don't feel heard." That's a powerful shift, from reacting to understanding. And fear? It's not weakness. It's often the voice of a deeper place inside, a part of you that hasn't fully healed, a memory that still hurts, or a truth you haven't faced yet. I once met a man who had served in the Marines. Tough on the outside, but he quietly admitted, "I'm afraid of silence, especially when I'm alone." After practicing meditation and reflection, he realized that fear came from a night during war, When he witnessed a fellow soldier fall in complete silence, he had never allowed himself to grieve, believing he had to stay strong. And that refusal to feel had turned into a fear that stayed with him for over 40 years. You see, fear doesn't lie. It simply points to places we haven't yet brought light. And sadness? Sadness might be the quietest of all emotions. It doesn't shout like anger. It doesn't rush like fear. It lingers. And sometimes, it runs deep. Sadness is often a gentle reminder that something inside needs care. A wound that hasn't healed. A truth we haven't spoken. A longing we've never dared to name. Buddhism doesn't teach us to be happy all the time. Quite the opposite. The Buddha teaches us to accept every emotion, like welcoming a guest into our home. So when sadness visits, feel it fully present. Listen to it, the way you'd listen to an old friend, sharing a story they've never fully told. I remember during a loving kindness meditation, one woman placed her hand on her heart and gently offered blessings to the sad part of herself. She said, instead of pushing it away, I simply said, I see you, sadness. It's okay. I'm here with you. And over time, that sadness stopped being heavy and became something soft, a tender place in the heart where compassion could grow. 11. Community connection can heal emotional pain. There are some wounds that silence alone can't heal. There are negative emotions that only grow heavier the more we try to hide them. Have you ever felt that? Trying to hold everything together, trying to look okay, trying to smile, even when inside you're carrying a weight you've never spoken out loud. There's something people rarely talk about. When it comes to emotional healing, connection, not the noisy kind on social media, but real connection, honest, gentle connection, in a safe space, where you can say what's hurting you without judgment, where you can take off the mask of strength and just be yourself. Not perfect, not needing a reason. In Buddhism, this is called Sangha, a spiritual community that practices together, supports one another. On the path to awakening, the Buddha once told his beloved attendant, Ananda, Ananda, do not think that spiritual friendship is part of the path. It is the whole path. That line may sound simple, but it's deeply profound. It reminds us we're not meant to walk this path alone. You can practice mindfulness. You can sit in deep meditation, but without human connection, the heart can still shut down because of pain, because of fear, because of loneliness. Now imagine this. It's the end of a long day. You sit down with a warm cup of tea across from a trusted friend. No deep philosophy, no analyzing. You simply say, lately I've been tired, and your friend doesn't try to fix you. They don't tell you to be strong. They just pause, smile, and say, I've felt that way too. Thank you for sharing that with me. That moment, small as it may seem, can soften a sadness you've carried for years. I've seen this happen again and again. In small meditation groups at the temple, elders would enter the room, quiet and closed off, their faces tense, their eyes distant. But after a Dharma sharing session, where they were listened to without interruption, where they finally said out loud what they had held in for so long, tears would fall. And after that, gentle smiles would return. Because no one is meant to heal alone. No one was born to carry pain in isolation. Negative emotions like anger, sadness, shame, or loneliness, when kept in silence, become shadows that grow darker. But when they are shared, in a space full of loving presence, they lose their power. It's like a child crying in a dark room. All it needs is someone to open the door and hold them. Connection doesn't mean oversharing. It means choosing the right place, the right person, at the right time, so your heart can finally breathe. Maybe it's your life partner who truly listens, an old friend who understands you without words, or a small group of fellow practitioners where you don't need to act spiritual, you just need to be real. I remember one elder once told me, "I used to think I had to go through my pain alone, but after a few gatherings with the Sangha, I realized just having someone sit beside me, not saying a word, but being fully present, was enough to melt my sadness." Sometimes, presence is the greatest gift of all. Buddhism doesn't pull us away from life. On the contrary, the teachings invite us to return to each other, to be nourished, and to nourish. 12. The breath, a safe place when emotions rise. There are moments in life when words just aren't enough. All you know is your chest feels heavy. Something is rising inside you, and it's like your whole body doesn't quite belong to you anymore. Maybe it's a sudden comment, a memory that rushes back, a nameless fear that creeps in late at night. Have you ever felt something like that? When emotions flood in, our instinct is to react, to shout, to shut down, to walk away, or do something to escape it. But no matter how we react, what often follows is emptiness. Like we just missed something important, ourselves. In those moments, Buddhism doesn't ask you to be holy or perfect. It doesn't demand you to control your feelings. It simply invites you to come back to your breath. The breath so ordinary, we forget it's even there. But it's the very first and final refuge of our lives. We're born with a breather first cry. And when we leave this world, it's the final breath that gently lets us go. And yet, how many times in life have we actually noticed that we're breathing? Imagine this. It's a rough day. Someone says something that upsets you. Your mind spins. You want to say something but can't. And instead of reacting, you pause just for a moment and bring your attention to your breath. Breathing in, I know I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know I'm breathing out. You're not trying to fix anything. You're not trying to make it better. You're simply present. And in that moment, something shifts. You're no longer drowning in the emotional storm. You're standing on the riverbank, watching the waves of your mind flow past without getting swept away. I once guided a small meditation group all over 60. One woman, who had lost a loved one, said, "At first, I didn't understand when people said, 'Come back to your breath.' It felt abstract. But one day, I sat alone, heart aching, and I tried just one deep, mindful breath, and the tears came. But they weren't tears of despair. They were tears of coming home. That's it, coming home. Not somewhere far away. Not when life finally settles down. But right here, right now, with a single, conscious breath. In the Anapanasati Sutta, the Buddha said, breathing in long, I know I'm breathing in long. Breathing out short, I know I'm breathing out short. Nothing fancy. But if practiced with sincerity, you'll see. The breath is the thread that connects body and mind, the bridge from chaos to calm. A friend once told me, I've lived over 60 years and never knew that I could feel peaceful just by breathing. I didn't say much, just smiled, because I knew she had just touched the heart of true meditation. And you? You can begin anytime. Sitting on the couch, waiting in line, lying in bed, doing laundry, feeling lonely, or just before anger spills over. The breath is always there, loyal, quiet, humble. It never leaves you. You just need to breathe and know you're breathing. No need to force peace. No need to become someone you're not. Just be with your breath, and you've already become your own friend. Life doesn't always wear us down with big events. It's often the little emotions we ignore, the unspoken anger, the sadness we never admit, the wounds we hide under the mask of, "I'm fine." But if you've made it this far in this reflection, maybe you're already on the path, learning to turn inward with kindness and clarity. Maybe you're ready to stop fighting your emotions and start listening to what they're really trying to say. Maybe you're learning to breathe with your sadness, walk slowly with your fear, and gently hold yourself like a true friend. Because in the end, no emotion is wrong when we pause long enough to listen. No pain is meaningless when we learn to look deeply and transform it. And if you're looking for a place to grow that peace a little more each day, a place where Buddhist teachings are shared in a warm, gentle, and meaningful way, then the Buddhism Seeds YouTube channel is here for you. Subscribe to nurture these seeds of compassion and wisdom. Like this video if it touched your heart. Share it with someone, a loved one, a friend, or even a stranger who might need this message today. And if you feel like it, leave a simple comment below. Something as honest as, "I'm learning to breathe with my emotions." Sometimes, just one honest line can warm the heart of someone quietly walking through a storm. See you again, in the space where the heart is heard, the emotions are held, and the breath becomes your peaceful refuge.